Welcome to a special episode of Thrive Guys. This week, we talk about the newly released Notion API and why we're so excited about it. Dan Short, it is special episode time. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. It's actually a Sunday today, as you're very well aware, which is lovely.
It's all up in the air at the moment. We typically record on a Saturday in the morning. We're now recording on a Sunday, even earlier in the morning than we usually do. But it is because it is special episode time. Now, we've never done one of these before, have we? We're not really like a news type show. We said when we started Thrive Guys that we wanted all of our episodes to kind of be timeless. But, something has happened in the world that it felt right for us to take a pause from the schedule and crack this episode out, as it's a pretty hot topic. It's something that I'm very excited about. And you are excited about, maybe not as much as me, but maybe you are. I don't know.
Look, it's very popular among certain communities, and I'm not going to delve into that anymore. But
Fair
you
enough.
fit into that category. That's all I'm going to say.
No, I'm happy to fit in somewhere, so that's good. So, look, before we get to the main kind of topic today, how's your week been? How have things been going your end?
It has been chaos. It's not been a fun week. I've been trying to, last week I mentioned that I sold my house, and it's been all systems go. It's been house viewing after house viewing, and I don't know if any of the listeners have bought or sold a house ever. But it's not really the actual process of finding a property. It's finding one that you can agree on with your partner. And it's been crazy. But we're through the thick of it, and I hope that the next few weeks are going to be a bit easier.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've arrived at a conclusion for the next stage. So all we've got to do now is do all of the due diligence and stuff, and then you can make the switch. So yeah, it's great.
Bleeding paperwork,
exactly. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. And what about yourself?
So nothing quite so exciting, but there's been a couple of things going on in my world. I am now the proud father of a second mechanical keyboard.
Oh yeah.
Did you like that dramatic pause? Like I did that for effect. So
yeah, it's not the first time. As I said, everyone here always talks about the drama.
Exactly.
That's what keeps them engaged.
If there's anything that this podcast is known for, it's the drama and the dramatic pauses. So yeah, anyway, I got an Iquinix F96. It is a fantastic Bluetooth mechanical keyboard. This has been a bit of a journey for me. I mean, it's mechanical keyboards have become more popular over the last 12 months, probably because no one's got anything to do, and so it's like, well, what do I want to spend my money on? Oh, let's have a look at these quirky looking keyboards that look like they're from the 80s. And I think when I bought the Keychron K2, you ridiculed me for a good few minutes, and then ended up buying your own Keychron K2. So I just wanted to put that on record that you were wrong.
Yeah, I've done that to save face for you. Wouldn't necessarily say I was wrong. I've done it to help you out. Solidarity.
Oh, what a fantastic friend you are. Yeah. But I used that for a while, and I still love it. It's a really good value keyboard for what you get. This one was slightly more expensive, but you can kind of tell the delta in kind of quality. This is like fully aluminium. I got the brown switches because blue switches are just. I do want to go for blue switches. They're like the really, really clicky switches, but I bottled it and went for the brown ones, which is what I've always had. So that's that. That's mildly exciting, I guess.
It is when you see the colours. The colours are really cool.
That's true. I'll put a link to the website in the show notes. The colour scheme is pretty sharp. Yeah.
Outlandish. Yeah.
Outlandish. Yeah. It's a nice pop of colour on the old desk. So yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, pretty cool. And I have almost completed the planning of my Notion deep dive video. So our episode last week, our love letter to Notion, inspired me to create some additional content to kind of complement that episode. So it actually would be my first ever kind of deep dive, my first ever Thrive Bite, I guess you could call it. I just need to actually film the bits and pieces and edit it. And so basically all that's left to do is actually to do it. I've done all the planning now. I actually just have to do the thing. But yeah, after that, I'll get it up on our YouTube. So I'm sure we'll shout about it when that happens.
For sure. I've got a load of ideas for some shorter clips as well in terms of introductions to some of the different apps we talk about as well. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Decent. Shall we do Win of the Week?
Yes, we should.
It can't be a Thrive Guys episode without Win of the Week, special episode or not. So for those of you who don't know, Win of the Week is a segment at the top of each show where we get to share something that's happened that we'd like to celebrate, just to make sure that we start our conversation on a positive note. We post a reminder on our platforms every Friday, so if you'd like to share your Win of the Week with us and get involved, tag us on your post on Twitter or Instagram with @ThriveGuysPod or with #WinOfTheWeek. So, Dan, why don't you go first and share with us your Win of the Week, your whatever?
I have secured. That kind of threw me off, though.
Come on, focus, Dan. Come on.
Right. I managed to secure a bunch more audio work in a genre that I wasn't necessarily experienced in due to some work that I'd done, a while back, maybe a month or two back. Someone contacted me and asked if I'd be keen on mixing like some hip hop track for them, and I'd done it, and nice. I kind of thought nothing of it, but they were like, look, we've got quite a lot more work coming your way if you're keen on it. And I'm always quite honest about these things. I was like, look, I'm trying to move house, so like right now is not a good time, but if you give me a couple of weeks, I'll probably be in a better position. And they were like, yeah, we're happy to wait, which was kind of cool. So that's my win, it was something that was kind of out of my comfort zone. If you produce music, you kind of want to get good at a genre, but, branching out and trying different, that's the only way you're going to know what you're good at is by trying the different genres and seeing. So I was pretty happy with that they were, confident enough to come back and want to do some more work.
That's great. Excellent.
And what about yourself?
So my win of the week is a meta win of the week. So I've been able to get loads of the editing backlog for our show done this week. We're about sort of 2 months ahead, so we've got about 2 months worth of weekly content that we've got in the vault that I just need to go through. One of the reasons why I'm so behind is I had to scrub through a load of episodes that I'd already edited in order to add chapters to the to the MP3 file so that our listeners can jump around to the various bits of the topic that we discussed. So, for example, if you absolutely hate Win of the Week, you are an anti-whatever, then you can skip over it and you can go to the main subject of the episode.
The meat and potatoes, as you described it.
Exactly, the meat and potatoes. So, I'd want to make it easy for our listeners to get around each episode because they're not short. They're not 5-minute jobs. They're a good hour or so, and that all took time. So now I've got like 5 or 6 episodes to edit, but I cleared 2 down this week, which is 100% up from what I usually get done in the week. Usually Sunday mornings are my editing, so I get up really early and I just kind of crack through as much as I can before I just get bored. And I've basically been doing an hour at least every day, so I've been getting up at about between 5 and 5:30, doing an hour of editing, then basically getting ready to rock. And what I actually found is I'm slightly slower in the morning because I'm sleepy and bleary-eyed, but it's worth doing, and I'm still productive at work and all that good stuff. So, that's been a bit of a win for me. It's good to get the backlog down a little bit. Obviously, as we're recording today, we've completely scuppered all of my editing time, and I'm actually going to edit this right after this so we can get it out today because our topic today is very, very timely. And so that's one of the reasons why we've hit pause on our original scheduling to record and get this out there. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode. So a few days ago marked a monumental day for Notion users all over the world. This is a day that we've been waiting for. It is the release of the public beta for the API. This is our opportunity to start thinking about the possibilities of how we can interconnect the different parts of our non-Notion life. And today's episode is all about talking about that and sharing what we might or might not have started tinkering with already. So really excited to talk about the possibilities. But before we do that, we need to start at the foundations. So we need to kind of explain to someone who's just come here This is the first episode that they've ever listened to. They don't know what Notion is. So if you have no idea what we're talking about, then don't worry, dear listener. We will bring you up to speed. So, Dan, are you ready to rock and roll? Shall I get started with what Notion is?
I am. And if you listen to last week's episode, we talk about Notion in a lot of depth. But
Yes.
let's do if you can whiff through a quick summary, I would very much appreciate it.
I'll whiff through a quick summary. So, Dan, you're absolutely right. You should see last week's episode, dear listener. We spoke for about 90 minutes on what Notion is, why we love it. The episode's called A Love Letter to Notion, so you kind of get a feel for our positivity for it. So I will include a link in the show notes for that particular episode. But essentially, if I was to give you an elevator pitch, Notion is a productivity app, a toolkit, if you will. So it's not just a single use, it is a platform kind of thing. Notion has unrivaled flexibility in its utility in comparison to anything else I've used before. So it can be used for note-taking, writing, task management, project management, even things like HR and people management, sales and pipeline, and pretty much everything in between. Now, it does this by furnishing you, the user, with a number of different block types that you can use as building blocks to essentially build your own software without writing a single line of code. Sounds pretty good, right? So rather than having an app for this, an app for that, and a spreadsheet for this, and a spreadsheet for that, you can have everything in one single platform. So the fundamental benefit of having everything in one place is that these tools can be connected together and interlinked, creating emergent benefit. So what I mean by that is the end goal, the end result is worth more than the sum of all of its parts. And I think that is what makes Notion an absolute superpower. So, if that gets you excited, then crack on, check the longer episode, check all of the resources that we put in that episode, because there's loads of stuff there that links out to other creators and stuff that probably give a better explanation than either Dan or myself can. So yeah, that is Notion in a nutshell. Now, why is an API important to Notion? And well, firstly, what is an API? Dan, I want to give you an opportunity to explain your example because I think it's excellent. But essentially, an API, which stands for Application Programming Interface, is a set of commands that a third party, like third-party developers, can use to interact with a particular piece of software. So my example was, if you're in sales and you get an order and close it in your CRM, if that automatically pushes through to your company's finance system for billing, that's being done with an API.
I guess a nice way to explain an API to someone who isn't familiar is, let's say you're setting up a web page that aims to define dog breeds. So you could either compile a database of all known dog breeds, store this somewhere on a server, upload to your web server, and you can query past that data however you need. Why is it problematic? Well, Joe, do you know every dog breed?
No.
Are you keeping it up to date? Do you want to keep it up to date?
No.
So, exactly, a resounding no for most of those things. But the dog breeds API may be maintained by a community as new ones are discovered or whatever. New dog breeds are discovered on a random island somewhere.
In the Serengeti.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be updating that. Somebody will be doing it for you, but you still have free reign to use that data as you see fit. So
yeah,
you could, query that dog breeds API and say, well, actually, I only want, dogs with brown fur, and then you can do whatever you need with that, as opposed to having to maintain your own database of all of your characteristics and stuff like that. So that was just like a higher level example that I was kind of thinking of, and you could do the same with cars and stuff like that. If you just do a quick Google search, there's like an API public list, and there could be like, car manufacturers API and all that sort of stuff.
I didn't know that. So there's actually websites that are out there that have databases that you can hook into and scoop data into whatever it is that your utility. Amazing.
Yeah, so your company, for example, will have their own API, though, which would hook into your CRM and stuff like that, where you would still do GET requests and stuff like that, but because, that data is specific to your company. But that would be like a private API as opposed to, a public-facing one.
Okay, makes sense. So I mentioned earlier that Notion can be used for lots of different things, and, that's the whole benefit of it, that you can basically use it to run everything. But naturally, it handles some things much better than others, right? Let's not kid each other here. Some things it's a little bit woofy at. Life isn't perfect, and it's all about compromises, right? However, the API flips that on its head, providing your favorite apps have their own API, right? Because it means that those apps will be able to send data to Notion on a regular basis and vice versa. So if your favorite task manager, for example, has an API, it can connect into Notion and push things into Notion, and Notion can push things into it, right? So if, say, for example, you hate the mobile experience on Notion, which is a common... It's usable, I think, but it's not a native app experience. But you love Todoist, for example, and this is a little bit of foreshadowing here of what I might have may or may not have set up. You can use Todoist for your task manager on your phone and have that interact with your underlying task manager database in Notion. So that has all of the emergent benefit I talked about a few minutes ago. But you can use your favorite app on whatever platform, and it just interacts with the API to kind of update the data. So that's the background, right? That's the groundwork. We've laid down the foundations of what the flip we're talking about here. So, Dan, what does this mean for you and your use of Notion? How do you think your use will change?
I'm just hoping it leans more towards integrations with applications, specifically Outlook and Todoist, to name my kind of top two contenders.
Okay.
Because I use Todoist, and we've had these conversations multiple times, that I just want that seamless integration. The embed function doesn't work because I use a Google account.
Let's just kind of expand upon that a little bit, because you mentioned embeds, and someone who doesn't use Notion probably won't know what we're talking about there. So you're basically embedding a website, a little preview of the website inside Notion.
Yes. So it would be nice to just have like Todoist in my Notion window, so I don't have, Todoist open and Notion open.
Right.
Same with Outlook. Like, I don't use the calendar function in Notion at all, because I just, I maintain everything via my Outlook calendar. Whereas it'd be nice to have the two-way communication between them, where if I got like a new calendar appointment, and it was accepted, I could see that in Notion. So I could just have, my window open that's my work page and just be doing certain things and put tasks in it that then propagate to my calendar so people can see them. Because that's the thing, if you put everything in Notion and somebody wants to contact you, they're just going to see that you've got an empty calendar. Whereas if it's two-way communication, you put like a task that you're working on, or it'd be nice to just do that as a task in Notion and then just get that popped straight in my calendar and just go, right, he's busy at this point.
Yeah.
Same with Todoist. Like, I really like the natural language in it, and just being able to write like, tomorrow do this, or, doing repeat tasks and stuff like that, and projects. In an ideal world, I would just have Todoist completely integrated into Notion as a page, but it just doesn't seem to work that way at the moment. So maybe the API will open doors for that. That's what I'm hoping.
So I think a good place to start, because you mentioned some good things there, and I just want to kind of rewind a little bit and just provide additional context, because I'm exactly in the same place as you. What you're getting excited about is what I'm getting excited about. But a good place to start would be to outline what the main challenges are with Notion as at today. Sans API. Notion has been, I guess, what you could consider a walled garden. So, in reality, you can't just use one app to manage everything. But in order to use Notion, you have to make some compromises. And, not everybody on the planet uses Notion. So there has to be some recognition that other apps are required, right? And I'm thinking specifically about the calendar. When I say that, that's kind of what's in the forefront of my mind. So the calendar is fundamental to how I get work done, and this in the past has been completely separate to Notion. And in order to maintain my action items database, to make sure that it's reflective of the actual work I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, I've had to keep the two in sync by adding new items every time I add a new calendar invite into my calendar. And to give you an example, I might do 50 appointments a month. And so maintaining those and keeping those up to date has to be part of my weekly review. And so, a big part of my weekly review is just sitting there entering data.
It's doubling up of effort as well, isn't it?
For sure. Yeah. Oh, it's a real pain in the backside. It's like, my weekly review should be thinking about, okay, what's going to make next week successful, rather than, do I have all of my scheduled meetings in my Notion database? It's just, but that's the way that we've had to work, until now. The second key challenge is, and I think I've kind of foreshadowed it earlier, is Notion is not amazing on mobile. And this is a common piece of feedback, as I've said earlier. I think it's usable, but it's not great. And it's also kind of slow as well.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely.
It hasn't really been a problem up until, well, for the last 12 months that I've been using it, because I've been sitting here for the last 12 months. But as things start to open up and mobile capability becomes more important, that's going to be a problem. And there are much better options on mobile for quickly capturing notes and thoughts or action items or calendar events or whatever. But historically, this has meant that there is a process at the end of every day or every week to process these into Notion. So more transposing of data. And what's worse is that copying and pasting in Notion, especially on mobile, absolutely sucks nutsack. It is so bad. Why? Why is it so bad? How can you stuff up copying and pasting? I don't understand it. Someone explain it to me. But not now. Later. Get me on Twitter. Seriously. I don't get it. So that's the second problem, and it makes me angry. Moving on. As I mentioned earlier, there are things that Notion isn't particularly strong at as well. It's good for most things, but, some things are workarounds, right? And there are other vertically focused apps that are leaps and bounds ahead of what's possible in Notion. So historically, you had to make the choice. Is the benefit of emergence worth what I'd be giving up in terms of functionality? And I'm looking at you, recurring tasks. It doesn't do it well. But we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So for my usage, how I think this is going to change is linking my calendar to Notion. As you mentioned earlier, right? That is for me the fundamental thing that,
Top
gets
contender.
me fired up. Yeah, absolutely. Top contender. And the idea of that, and in my utopian view of productivity, is every calendar entry is pushed into the action items database as a scheduled task. That is kind of, chef's kiss, pièce de résistance.
Pièce de la Morgan.
Yes, exactly. The second thing is linking other action items to Todoist or something similar, so that I have a task manager on mobile that is native and feels good to use on a mobile, but then also has all of the emergence of being linked to projects and to customers and to blah, blah, blah in my Notion database.
It gives you that segmentation as well and separation away from using just Notion for everything, because you can then go, right, this is a task, so I'm going to use my task manager instead of being like, right, let me go into my Notion page, then let me go to my task, let me find my action items and stuff like that. Even if you've got a shortcut, it's nice to have that separation using Todoist as well.
For me, that's not the use that I'm not bothered about segregation. For me, it's just having an app that doesn't feel like rubbish. Essentially, I'm all good with it all, with the data all being in the same place.
Yeah.
But the experience is woof, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree.
I would also want it to have it linked the other way as well. So when I create a task from Todoist, so a quick capture task on Todoist, I want to push that into Notion, and that's specifically for recurring tasks. So your put the bins out task that you always talk about. You're fascinated with putting out bins, and I love it. Notion can't handle that without a load of formula woof that I don't understand and I'm not interested in. So
it's not easily achieved, right? Is the bottom line?
Absolutely not. And lots of people have done kind of workarounds for it, but I want something that's proper, not a workaround. The fourth one is linking my quick thoughts capture from drafts. So whenever I'm out and about, I use drafts of just capturing quick ideas and stuff, because it's the quickest way to push a button and have a blinking cursor that you can then type into. So that's pretty good. I've already started working on something here, so when we talk about what we've automated so far, I'll kind of come back to that. And the last one, which isn't something I've talked to you about, is when and if we start doing newsletters, which could be cool, having a sign-up form that we can put on our website, so that people can say, I want to hear what these idiots are saying, in written form rather than just in spoken form. That can automatically push into a Notion database where we can then send emails from a mail service or whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of my wish casting, and it all looks pretty achievable. But what it seems like from my initial sort of look at this, and I don't know whether you've looked at this yourself, Dan, is a lot of this is relying on the companies involved picking the work up and doing the coding stuff, and creating an officially supported API interface with Notion. I mean, that would be the ideal anyway, right?
Yeah.
But there are no-code tools available from literally today that allow you to do some of the things above. And I fiddled around with these in the last few days, and I've got some stuff to share.
Yeah, let's definitely sort of dig into that a bit deeper. But I mean, in terms of if the API is now available, what I'm excited about is seeing stuff like Ifttt, which is short for if this then that, because that's like a really cool way where people can do their kind of custom integrations based on actions, which will say it's literally what you see is what you get. So if this, which is like, it could be a push of a button, or if I put a calendar appointment in, send it to this place. And once the Notion API was supported on that platform, you can then basically do whatever you need to, because it'd be like, I had it for, I think one I configured on Ifttt about 3 years ago was that I had a button on my watch. So as soon as I pressed the button, it would enter a value into a database, so I was basically tracking when I'd gone to the gym.
Yeah.
So I could see if it was worth the money I was spending on it. It would literally just put an entry into a database, which was the date and the time that I checked in.
Nice.
Just by pressing that button, because I was like, well, I don't want to like write into a database that I've done it myself, like just manually, just automatically press that button and crack on. And I could do it to test the phone, because I was at some point in my career, I was doing like a load of test calls throughout the day. To a certain number to make sure that it was still working. And I had a button that I could press on my phone that would just, automatically dial and then give me the results of that call and stuff. So there's a lot of cool stuff, but that's reliant on Ifttt and Notion kind of working together to get those in place. But that's what I'm kind of excited about most.
I totally agree. And as of recording, as far as I'm aware, Ifttt haven't done whatever work's needed. And I don't know whether it's work on their end or whether it's like a community thing. I'm not really sure. I've used Ifttt actually for some of the stuff that I've done so far.
Yeah.
But I'll get to that. It's a bit of a mess. But there are other players that do similar things to Ifttt. So like no-code integrators that have done stuff already. Those two main players so far are Zapier and Automate.io.
Automate.io always seem to be on the forefront of this stuff. They always seem to pop up. I've been meaning to look into them.
Well, that's interesting because I'd never heard of them before. I've heard of Zapier before, but I'd never heard of Automate.io before. But I'm not, I don't know what this stuff is really. But I have done some research on it, and from my research, it seems that Automate.io has the most features. So it can do more things. They've built out they've built out whatever they do to do more things with the Notion API. So all that Zapier can do at the moment is add a new entry.
Right, fine.
Whereas Automate.io can add a new entry, update an entry, and it can also do page content as well. So this is all database stuff, right? So you can't really add a new page just to a page. It's got to be a database, from what I can see.
Yeah.
But Automate.io can actually add page content underneath the database entry, which I don't believe that Zapier can do. And also, and this is the bit that's my barrier to entry at the moment, but Automate.io has a slightly better pricing model. It's slightly less lumpy. It's £10 a month, $9.99 a month, billed annually again. Just tell me how much it's going to cost me a year. Don't make me do the maths, right? Don't make it out like, it's just £10 a month. Yeah, but we charge you every year. It's like, all right, fine. And Zapier is, I think, £20 a year. Not £20 a year, £20 a month if you pay for it annually, or £30 if you pay month to month to month. So it's pretty lumpy just to sync your calendar with Notion. So you've got to really have a strong use case for it, I believe. Because I still think that's actually a fair amount of money, considering that actually the API from a Notion point of view is available to even your free tier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's one of those. But I am pleased to report that I've had a reasonable amount of success doing stuff with Automate.io. But as I say, I've hit a bit of a wall in terms of what I can do without spending probably a bit more money that I'm comfortable with for what I'm actually doing on a volume basis, but we'll see how it goes. Why don't we talk about what we've built already? And I know that this might be a slightly shorter segment for you.
Yeah.
Just run me through what you've built so far, Dan.
Absolutely zero. I've done nothing.
It hasn't been out for long, to be
So
fair.
look, I have some ideas, but it's so hot off the press. I burnt my damn fingers. So
Nice.
I'm trying to catch up. And as I said, with trying to sell the house and trying to move and stuff, I just haven't had much time. But I've had some ideas, and I'm just going to run through those very quickly before
Please
you
do.
talk about what you've built. So my aim is to have pages in Notion with buttons so that I can click those to run automation tasks direct. So I would have like just a single window that's like, I want to create a new task, and it would just run that, and it just runs all of these different things. So I do a lot of automation at work, and it'd be nice to have all of those in one page as opposed to having them in a file structure where, like, at the moment I have to right click and run them. And especially if I wanted to put a lot of my Stream Deck shortcuts on there, because sometimes you don't want to bring your physical Stream Deck. And if you can, then why not just have a button in Notion that does all the work for you, and you've just got one page that has all of your common tasks.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's like just having your own Stream Deck page that runs custom code. It'd be wicked, hopefully.
Like the software, basically a software version of Stream Deck.
Inbuilt to Notion, which would be cool.
I love that.
I also aim to have a chatbot that can add things to Notion pages based on interaction. So to elaborate, if someone were to contact me and say, Dan, can you do this for me? I could just type it into the bot or into a chat window, and it'd create a Notion task. So you could basically kind of use the natural language that Todoist does, but you'd say create task and then the case ID or whatever, and it would just pop a Notion page or a Notion task wherever.
Yeah.
Or add it to a Kanban board. So I could literally just type into my chatbot like work task, this is what it is, and then just put it straight onto the board. But who knows? It depends on the integrations and stuff. That's where I hopefully see it going, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too. That sounds great. So you're almost with your second point, using the API to kind of pull like phrases out of the string of text that you're typing. So it's like, put the bins out on Thursday at 8 p.m. Then it's like, okay, put the bins out Thursday, 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Meme of the woman doing all of the mathematical processing. That's the API. That's what the API is doing, right?
That's what I'm hoping, yeah.
The API is a middle-aged woman
just doing calculations in midair.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. I love that. That sounds like cool. That sounds really cool. That's see, this is why you're the tech guy and I'm just the guy that sells stuff, because you come up with all the cool ideas. I love that.
I'm hoping it works. But again, this is heavily reliant on what true experienced developers can do, because I'm not a super hot coder. I know bits and bobs, and I do quite a lot of the automation piece, but building something from the ground up is you have to dedicate a lot of time to it. So it's reliant on stuff like Ifttt and Automate.io and all the other good parties that we've mentioned, and the community of developers out there like Stack Overflow and stuff that do all this cool stuff and say, oh yeah, I've just spent 6 weeks on a piece of code, but here you go, have it for free. Which is nuts.
When I asked you you and friend of the show David Bogner, to help me out with some integration, you just went, no. You basically said I'd be able to finish it before you retire. I was like, oh, okay, won't be so useful then. And hopefully that's going to be not so long away, but that's going to be more than a few years. So yeah, I get that. It does take time to do these things, especially if I even had a thought like maybe I should learn code and just do it myself. And then I very, very quickly put that idea to bed, as Joe, you're already trying to do more than you probably should. Learning code just to add to the pain of the time pressure probably isn't the best idea. So
No, I agree with that.
Shall I run through the stuff I've done? The mess I've made.
Yes, please.
So I've got essentially 3 things that I've done so far. One is reasonably impressive. The other 2, not so much. So I'll go through the slightly reasonably impressive one first, and then I'll talk about the slightly less reasonably impressive ones later. So the 3 that I've done so far is calendar to Notion, and I'll put this in inverted commas, integration, and I'll explain why in a minute. The second one I've done is Notion to Todoist, quote unquote, integration. And the third one is actually, probably the one that's the most robust, and that is the quick note capture. So, to set the scene, I currently have Office 365 as my main calendar service, which is managed and maintained by my company. What I basically wanted to achieve with this integration is whenever a calendar event is created in my calendar, it will sync a portion of the data from the calendar into my action items database as a scheduled action, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that probably takes me the most time, as I've mentioned earlier, is keeping these two systems in sync. And so anything I can do to make this better would be awesome. I would love it. Now, first challenge I come up against is that my company, understandably, doesn't want me authenticating my Outlook Office 365 with third-party services like Zapier or Automate.io. I don't want to sync any sensitive data or anything like that. It's just the title and the date, right? That's all I want to go into Notion. I don't want any other data, but, understandably so, my company doesn't want me authenticating Outlook with any third-party stuff that's not been approved. So fine, okay, I have to work around that. It's all I want is the data to help me create the task. So I had to figure out a way around that, with the constraints that I find myself with. So I've tried doing this before when I tried embedding the calendar into my Action Center dashboard. And I used Ifttt, which we've talked about earlier, to achieve this. So what I essentially did was I used the Ifttt iOS calendar piece, which then every time a new event gets created in my iOS calendar, which is the link to the Outlook calendar, this then creates an entry, an equal entry in the Google Calendar. So this seemed like a good way to start, and what I've done so far in terms of setup works okay, but there's some pretty big gotchas. So the nice thing about Ifttt that doesn't seem to be present on other services is that you can create actions based on the iOS calendar. This means that I can do what I've described earlier in terms of every time something sets up on the iOS calendar, it then pushes through to the Google Calendar, because there's integration between my Microsoft Outlook calendar and the iOS calendar. You can see this is a web of spaghetti, which if one thing fails, this is the house of cards just crumbles. But we are where we are, right? So this does mean that it has to be run on my phone, because it's like a web service, and the feature set, unfortunately, is very limited. It's only for new events being added. So if I update an event, it doesn't do anything. It's just new events get added. So it's okay for a version 0, but it's not exactly where I want it to be. So once the event is created in Google Calendar using Ifttt, I have an Automate.io bot that will then create an action item with the priority classification of scheduled in the action items database that I've got. So this action inherits all of the information pertinent to the calendar event. So start date and time, end date and time, meeting subject. That's all I'm pulling through.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that's okay, but it has some pretty significant limitations that I haven't managed to get round yet. The most important limitation being is that this is only a one-way interface, and it's one and done, meaning that if I create or change anything in Notion, then it doesn't update my calendar. And also, if I update the invite in Outlook, as it's already been created, nothing in Notion changes either. So that's it's like 50% of what I need, but it's at least 50%. So I think I might have found a way to update the Notion entry if the Google Calendar event is changed or cancelled. So that is a step forward, but I haven't found a way that it could then update the Outlook calendar because of the limitations of Ifttt. So it may just be that I can't get around it, but we'll see. One thing that's on my list to explore next is whether I can do something that runs on my Mac rather than on a web service to keep the two calendars in sync. My Mac is basically on all the time, so it wouldn't be too much of an issue to have something running locally that moved things around. there must be a way to link two calendar entries together using some sort of unique identifier and make a service to make sure that when one moves or is cancelled, the other moves too. So I think I need to brush up on my Apple script or something like that to see if I can make something like that happen.
I was thinking that's a good place to start in terms of, if you had something come into your iPhone, you could use a shortcut to send it to a specific platform. Say, for example, Automate.io could read data from emails. You could then, say, for example, there was a new calendar appointment. You could then trigger it to send an email with certain data in it based on the Apple script and then just read that using Automate.io. So then it's completely separate. But then it's like, working out those updates and stuff.
So the next thing that I've built in Automate.io is an interface between Notion and Todoist. And I say interface with with my tongue in my cheek. People who have listened to this show know that I'm not really a Todoist user, but I wanted to try this out to see whether using a native mobile app for task management is a better experience than using my mobile view Notion pages I have I've created that lives in a shortcut action on my phone. So this interface was really, really easy, and I didn't have the same challenges as with the calendar integration. It's essentially when I create an action item in Notion, it pushes the data out into my Todoist inbox. It's really easy. It's a basic interface that I need to expand on in the future, I think. But I think in order to get this into a position that would be really usable, i.e. when you check something off on Todoist, it checks off in Notion and the like, I'd need to spend the £120 a year for a year's worth of Automate.io. One of the limitations of it is you can't have multi-step actions on the free tier.
Yeah.
So you can only do like a trigger and an action, and I need a trigger and then an action and then an action and blah, 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 blah. So in order to get that kind of properly rocking and rolling, I probably need to spend a little bit of money. However, I think that Todoist would be the sort of app that would build integrations to Notion natively. They do typically have, decent integrations with other products. So I think before I'm going to go down the road of spending a load of money, I'm going to wait and see if that happens. So I'll give it a few months and see if something changes there. But if not, then okay, I'll speculate on this subscription, and for the sake of research, for the sake of science, I will find out whether that is possible, so that you, dear listener, don't have to waste money. That's for me to do.
Do you know what? As long as you've got like a database of things that you want to attempt and things you want to achieve, then you'll get value out of that money anyway, because you'll be working on it throughout the year, doing different things and working out whether it's you can tick them off. So when I do any of my automation tasks, I have a database where I like look into it and go, right, how much time am I going to have to invest in it before this becomes worthless, or do I get the results that I want after spending 6 months working on it, or am I just wasting time? Like, why would you spend 6 weeks working on a task that takes you 30 seconds to do? Like, how much time is that going to save you over the year and stuff, etc.?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And it's, if a task takes you 30 seconds, but you do it 500 times, then, it's all about the cost-benefit analysis, mate. The CBA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is quite good, because you usually buy something because you CBA to do it manually. There you go. Ba-bum. Moving swiftly on, the last one that I have created, the last interface. This is actually one that works really well, and kind of just works because it's just really simple. Is quick note capture. So I use drafts all the time for capturing quick notes and ideas, because it's so useful and it's so quick to start. It's the best way to capture quick notes. It's not the best place to keep them, but it's a good place to start. And so much so that it lives on my dock of my phone. It's something that is always present, ever present, whatever home screen I'm on. And one of the things I've talked about before on previous episodes is using drafts for drafting emails, and then using the action feature set within drafts to then send them off to clients without having to jump into my inbox. So it keeps me out of my inbox, but I can still do work, because email is a big part of my work.
Yeah, exactly.
So I haven't fully tested this yet, but I've got some bare bones of it there, and I'm pretty sure it's working properly. The kind of the idea is I do my note taking in drafts, whether that's on the phone or on the Mac or whatever, and then I use the send an email feature to send this into a Notion database. Automate.io has a trigger action called email, which gives you a unique email address to send whatever you're sending to whatever you want to send it to. So it's kind of a broker between your email and the API that you're using, in this case, the Notion API. So the workflow is I have an idea, I get it into drafts, I email it to the email address, and it shows up in Notion. Perfect. That works. That is a perfectly good use, and it's because it's one way, it's one and done. It like ticks the box of the free tier. It ticks the box of whatever's there in Automate.io right now. So actually, in terms of a process, yeah, that's probably the one that's working the best right now. The other ones are kind of they're almost there, but either I have to spend some money or I have to do it a slightly different way in order to really achieve what I want to achieve. So, but for a couple of days' work, it's promising. I'm really excited about how this is going to fundamentally, shift the paradigm of how Notion is useful in all of our lives. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked, dude.
Yeah.
Pretty stoked.
I'm buzzing for it. I'm just excited to see what other people can come up with and where it kind of leads in terms of what people feel is the most valuable stuff they can do within Notion, because as much as I love Notion, it's very much a standalone kind of product at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's really good at what it does, and it's really good for consolidating all of your data and, keeping you in check. But, the integration is something I've been really looking forward to for a long time.
Yeah, me too. Who thought that we'd be excited about like APIs?
Lockdown's been difficult on both of us.
It seems like it has. We're a couple of losers here, but I wouldn't have it any other way, mate. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Agreed.
If you, dear listener, have done anything with the Notion API, please let us know. I'd be really interested to see all of the different examples that people have been putting together, and if you're comfortable with sharing them, then please share them. It's a great community that we're all a part of, and sharing is caring.